I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. And today we're going to be talking about this viral clip of Bernie Sanders on Fox News talking to Bret Baier about his tour and the report that he spent a ton of money on private jets. And Bernie's response is pretty astonishing, not surprising though, but we can still call it astonishing. And it just reminded me also of an interview with Mark Cuban that he had with Vivek Ramaswamy, a conversation that they were having. And climate change came up. And so a lot of people will say, oh, I care about these things, but are they willing to live by their own ethics? They expect everyone else to play along and do whatever. And they have a different set of rules. They're in a different set of people, class of people, and everyone else has to adhere and live by standards that make our lives more difficult while they get to have a pass because obviously we need to ride on jets and because we're important people. We need to get from A to B. So I want to talk about that. Also, there was a clip on CNN where they're talking about the transgender military ban that the court has, at least for the meantime, decided to uphold. So people are very upset about it. There's lots of things that you can't do in the military, different medical conditions that would disqualify you from serving. It doesn't seem so out of the box to me that if you have a break mentally with reality that you wouldn't necessarily be fit to serve. But they tried to compare that to being Black or so. What happens if they decide they're not going to have Black people in the military? And if you've been following me for a while, you know I'm so sick of people trying to compare those situations as if being Black is the same thing as like having a mental illness, or if you don't have gender dysphoria, really, really, really wanting to be able to fit into whatever gender category you want based off of your feels because you're adhering to a gender ideology. Maybe you don't actually have real dysphoria. I would still say you have a unhealthy sort of break with reality. And it's not the same thing as being Black or Hispanic or whatever. So we'll be talking about those things. Trump apparently also has a trade deal coming in with the UK, which I guess isn't perfect, but we're heading toward the right direction, which is good stuff. You know, and there's also different rumblings about the tax bill and the negotiations with that, which has not been passed yet, his big, beautiful bill. But we'll get to those things today. But before we jump into everything, I'm going to encourage you guys to go to blacktunes.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream on my site, all the good stuff so you guys can support. Very much appreciate it. And appreciate you guys, especially those watching live. I see Kit Kat in the chat and other people who are watching. Thank you to all of you who watch live, who watch back later. To those of you who leave comments and support and tweets and so on, and some of you who give, I very much appreciate you all. You guys can also check out different merch and stuff on the website, different t-shirts and mugs and so on. And you guys can also check out some of my books, like of Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That is available online. All my books are available on Amazon, only pretty much on Amazon right now, I think. Yeah. So you guys can get them in paperback, ebook, or you guys can get them on Kindle Unlimited. The nonfiction you can't get on Kindle Unlimited, but the rest you can. So I encourage you guys to check out that stuff. I will be at Motor City Comic Con next week, so I'll be just taking the week off, preparing for that show. And I look forward to any of you who might be in the area, who might pop by my table. I'll be in Artist Alley, and my booth will be I3. So let's hop to it. So this clip has been going around. It's viral. I've already seen other right-wing influencers talk about it on their shows today. So if you watch a couple, I'm sure you've probably seen this by now. I saw Ben Shapiro talking about this earlier, but it really started making waves. People were replying to it, talking about it last night and talking about it today, and really trashing Bernie Sanders. I saw Andrew Yang trying to stuck up for him, and it just wasn't working out to defend Bernie Sanders here. God bless Brett Baer. I guess kudos to people who are willing to go on Fox News from the left or whatever, but Brett Baer is a pretty serious ass job, so he's gonna ask you some questions.
Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour, paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No.
Bernie. Trying to play the whataboutism game. Oh, was the last time you saw about Donald Trump? Donald Trump's not like a socialist, bruh. And I know he won't say he's a socialist or commie or whatever, but we know. We know. Donald Trump isn't going around telling people, criticizing folks, being all climate change, and talking about the evils of the rich and so on. That's not his shtick. So for you to point the finger, be like, "When's the last time you saw Donald Trump?" No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Donald Trump isn't the one who's criticizing you. Maybe even if he were, he's criticizing you for not following your ethic. Like, I bring this up sometimes when transgender or ideology folks try to say, like, "Oh, well, you're not using my pronouns, so I'm going to call you the wrong thing." I'm like, "No, I'm using the correct pronoun that you should be having, because gender ideology doesn't exist. So I'm referring to the pronoun that would," I don't know why I did this with the pronoun that we're supposed to use, that's associated with, your sex, because sex and gender, they've been used interchangeably. That's the etymology of the word. With gender, it was just a substitution for sex most of the time. So if you're a boy and I use he, him instead of she, her, that's how it's supposed to be. And I'm not misgendering you. But if you decide to go out of your way and call me he, him, because you're trying to get under my skin, you're the one who's misgendering me because you want to be a jerk, and you're doing it in retaliation to kind of see, like, well, let's see how it feels against you. But you're the one who's violating your principle, your ethic of you have to respect people's pronouns. I'm respecting truth and reality, and I respect you too much to lie. That's my ethic. Your ethic is you go by what people want to hear and what they feel like. So you are betraying that. So we're just trying to hold you to the standard that you inflict upon everybody else. A lot of these people preaching the climate change, and you don't live but higher than your means, and you got to get rid of tax the billionaires and the millionaires and all that stuff. A lot of them, they have money themselves. Mr. Multiple House Bernie Sanders here. He had a lot to say about millionaires and billionaires before he started making a lot of money. And now you hear him talk a lot about the billionaires, because he's not a billionaire, but he is a millionaire. He is a millionaire. So bringing up Donald Trump in this scenario does not work, Bernie Sanders. It does not work. But it gets juicier.
No, it doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
And you think that this is hitting a mark? You think it's
okay? So I'll let him finish that out. But everybody's talking about the line about you expect me to just wait united with everybody else? With all the humans? With all the nobodies? With the average Joes? With the voters? With the constituents? You expect me to just wait in line and sit with the little people? Maybe if that's what you preach, that's who you're trying to appeal to. Now we can all understand why someone would want to take a private jet. I totally understand it. I've never been on one, never been on Air Force One or anything like that. I've seen some videos. I watched some videos and stuff. I know some people who have them for sure. But not that much in the realm of their sphere that I've been allowed or whatever anyone's invited me on. So I know people who have them, but I've never taken that flight. I've seen a lot of videos. I've put it in my different media books or whatever, so I know a little bit about it. But we get it. Why you'd want to do it. But him making the excuse of that's the only way that you can go to multiple rallies a day to see all these people. One, you don't have to do what you're doing. Like, if you cared about the environment that much, and there's the aspect of this is like high class, you're flying on a jet, you're like the 1%, Bernie, and that's what you give off when you fly in these jets. That's one aspect of it. But when you're also like a Green New Deal weirdo and you're so pro do all this stuff for the sake of the environment, even if it cripples the economy, this excuse falls really flipping flat to me. Really flipping flat. If you're one of these really pro-environmental types of folks. So one, you don't have to go to all these rallies and make all these rallies. You're not going to run for president. I know you want to stand up against Trump. We're not even we're 5 months in, kind of his administration. Not even. And you already want to do a tour about fighting the oligarchy, which, by the way, he's been talking about fighting the oligarchy for years. I think I've showed you guys a compilation video that someone put together some time ago. I'm not going to go dig for it, but it's been years that he's been using that term over and over and over again. So Trump, you might think that's special, and he's particularly the oligarchy, but when you keep crying wolf, it doesn't just ring true when you've used it so much. So you don't have to do the tour. You decided we live in an age of digital media and social media and so on. You could do Zoom calls and all kinds of different stuff to talk to people, tele-rallies. You don't have to go there to speak to the people in person if it's going to cause such a big footprint as far as carbon. You don't have to do that. There's a decision that you made. You don't have to drive there. You don't have to take your SUVs and limos and your private jet. You don't have to do that. You don't have to rent out the stadiums and whatever. You don't have to do that. That's a choice that you have made. And you especially don't have to do it now. And maybe he's doing it with AOC because she's going to run and he's going to back her. Bernie's very old. He's been very old for a long time. I don't think he's going to go ahead and try to run again. Everybody's suspecting that he's going to pass the baton, and it's probably going to be AOC, and she's going to run. And they're trying to set her up to be a more serious person, but there's a lot of receipts that she's not. So I don't think people should just forget about that. But that's, they're trying to, feed off their own kind of populist sort of a vibe with this tour and tap into people who are angry and want someone to fight, and they feel like Chuck Schumer Hakeem and all these other folks are just kind of capitulating to Trump too much, and they need someone who's going to speak and fight with people and so on. So they're trying to tap in that energy and take advantage and build off of that. But they don't need to do that. They're doing all that for their own benefit, for their own fame, for their own rise to power, her rise to power, you know, which we assume anyway. They don't need to do that. It's not even campaign time. It's primary time. There's a lot of people who are going to be traveling, going on planes, traveling across their states. That's true. But he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to be going across the country. He's from Vermont. He's not running for president again. So he doesn't need to do this. So there's that. But let's say he wants to do it. Okay, obviously he wants to do it. And let's say he's going to do it. Obviously he was going to do it. You don't need to arrange so many stops in one day. You don't need to arrange so many stops in 1 week. You can arrange stops that you can drive to different places, or that you could just take a normal plane with normal people. You could do that. Your staff could arrange that. You made the decision to do the multiple stops a day. And I can understand why you need to do that when it's campaign season. But it's not campaign season for Bernie Sanders like that, especially when you're going all across the country with him and AOC. You don't need to do that. So all these excuses are silly. Again, I understand why you'd want to fly in a private jet, in a private plane. I understand. They look amazing. It looks like an amazing experience. And then just not having to deal with the airport, you know, would be amazing. You know, I don't think dealing with going through the airport, I haven't flown a lot, to be honest. I've driven a lot, but I haven't flown a lot. I flew to Vegas twice. No, I think 3 times. Yeah, maybe 3 times. I knew I went once for like a licensing expo, and I went another time for my birthday. And we went another time for my sister's birthday. That was just no, I think it was 2 years ago. So, and I went to Denver years ago. Flew to Denver. I can't remember any other time that I've flown in the US besides I flew to the Philippines. We had to fly to Japan, and then we flew to the Philippines, and then we flew to like a smaller island. So that was a big flight. That was a big journey. But other than that, I don't think I've flown anywhere. I've been flown a lot. I've been flown a lot. The most difficult experience that I've had flying was when we were in the Philippines and all the security stops. And we were very concerned that we were going to miss our flight because they kept having signs like, this is the last security check. And it was not. It was like never the last security check. And we were really concerned that we were going to miss our flight. That was probably the most frustrating thing. Other than that, no, I already said the Philippines. Yeah. So I don't think those are other times that I've flown. And then one time I flew to Vegas. I had a really bad headache. Really bad headache. But other than that, you know, I haven't had terrible times, but I can understand why you wouldn't want to be jammed with everybody. They have different kind of food and different stuff that they have on the plane. It's just more comfortable, and you know, it just, you know, you don't have to do as many layovers or whatever, or you might not have to do it at all. I get it. But when you hold yourself to a different standard and you act like you're the everyday man, not just the everyday man, that you have to criticize everybody else who has money and you're part of the eat the rich crowd, and you're trying to appeal to the eat the rich crowd, and you're talking about the oligarchy, and you're flying around on planes all the time, it just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. It's not a good look. I don't remember what he says the rest of the video, so let's go ahead and watch it.
Scratching the itch that voters want to hear from.
I think at a time when the people on top are doing phenomenally well, when seniors, working class people are struggling, people want to hear action to stand up to the people who have the wealth and the power and create an economy that works for all of us, not just the people on top.
Well, Senator Sanders, I appreciate you coming on, talking about the issues, and we'll have you back.
Thank you very much, Brett. Thank you.
Yeah, the 1%, they're doing really well or whatever. And he closed it out, complaining to them. I appealed because there's people who are really hurting, and the 1%, like the kind of people who get to fly on private planes, Bernie, when they don't need to. Those kinds of people who have multiple houses, and you've basically been a leech off the system your whole entire life. You don't know what it's like to at least your socialist buddies who run Ben and Jerry's have rent a company. Though I did see one of those like Food That Made America shows that seemed like they kind of stole the idea from somebody, but how you do the Ben and Jerry stuff. But anyway, we'll have to talk about that another day. Speaking of Bernie Sanders and his ideology, though, it did remind me of this video. I think I've maybe showed it to you guys before. I'm not positive, but this was a minute ago, back in August. And so Vivek had a conversation with Mark Cuban, who is not my favorite shark, but I guess Mr. Wonderful is probably my favorite shark. And then it's probably Robert. Then it's, I don't know, between Mark and Lori. I don't know who I like the least. They both I don't know. I have to figure that out one day. But they had a conversation about climate change, and Mark just came off really ridiculous to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video.
To me, I believe climate change is real. I believe it's man-made. And if that is the case, I'm going to be for anything that mitigates that risk, because there's nothing more important to me in the value chain, right, in my risk analysis and dealing with probability than what's going to create the best world for my kids. That's
so
it.
Yeah, so I'll say a word about my own views on climate change. We don't have to debate this because the more important part is the business part, although we can debate the climate change part too. So do I believe global surface temperatures are going up? Yes, I do. Do I believe that there are man-made causes that may be playing a role in that? It appears plausible that could actually be the case. However, I do not believe that is anywhere near an existential risk for humanity. And
so let's just talk probability. Okay, go ahead.
So just a couple facts, because you could put probabilities around it, but
do they know the probabilities?
Realities are 8 times as many people die of cold temperatures today rather than warm ones. The Earth is now covered by more green surface area today than it was a century ago, because carbon dioxide is actually sustenance, plant food, effectively.
Okay.
And the right answer to all of these temperature-related deaths, cold or hot, is more abundant and plentiful access to energy, which requires fossil fuels. So for that reason, what's that?
What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
Yeah, so there's some scale problem.
What's because we don't know. Nobody knows for certain, right?
So the
you can model
argument, I can engage with that. Right? Because I think that's a legitimate. Even if there's a 1% chance you're wrong, how do you know? My only answer to that is you could be wrong in both directions, right?
Of course you can. Of course you can. But in my case, it costs money. In your case, my kids could be French fries, and their kids could have no chance.
So that debate's going to go on for a really long time, and I'm super interested in that. I've got a book coming out later this year evaluating all of the different angles on this for part of that. The part I'm interested in, though, for the business point, okay? Why should it be an individual business or a CEO that takes into account what they're doing for their own business to address climate change? Would that not make your business less competitive relative to Chinese peers.
Well, it depends. No,
None of whom, by the
because-
way, give the first care about climate change.
So, as far as different policies that they want to enact that would hurt businesses, which Mark's like, it just costs me money. He has a lot to go around, you know. It'd probably have to cost a crap ton of money, more than a crap ton of money, to start making him concerned. But of course, there's people with smaller businesses that can't adhere to, or it's very difficult for them to adhere to all these green policies. When the government enforces dumb policies for, you know, as far as energy related stuff, or I don't know, any kind of regulations, bigger companies can find a way around it. They have, or they have lobbyists to kind of wiggle their way out of different stuff, and lawyers to figure ways around it. If you're a small business, things are a lot tougher for you because you don't have maybe the direct line to the president. So I'm sure Mark Cuban is like, it just costs you money. Money's a big deal to a lot of people. Okay. Money is a big deal to a lot of people. But this attitude of it's worth the risk to, because it just costs, you know, me money on my side, but on your side, you could be risking your friend, your kids and my kids. They could all end up as French fries, and it's worth doing what we can to mitigate the risk. We don't know how much it is, but it's worth it to mitigate the risks when it comes to climate change, because my kids' futures are valuable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I first saw this clip, and I wonder if any of you guys are like on the same track. When I first saw this clip of Mark Cuban talking to Vivek about this, my kids. My first thought was, how many planes does this man own? How many planes does this man own? According to Google, it's 3. 3 planes, a Gulfstream G550, a Boeing 757-200 customized for the Dallas Mavericks, and a Boeing 767. He purchased the Gulfstream G550 for $40 million in 1999, earning a place in the Guinness Book World of Records for the largest e-commerce transaction. The Boeing 757-200 is used for the Mavericks. The Boeing 767 is used for a high-end charter. So, I don't know how often he has to go fly on United next to Bernie Sanders. I don't know how often he takes his private planes. But if you're going to say it's worth it for businesses to have to adhere to these climate policies because you don't want your kids to end up as French fries, wouldn't it be worth it to not fly on your jets, on your private planes, because you don't want your kids to end up as French fries? If it matters that much, like, I understand why someone very famous and someone very busy, booked and busy, wouldn't want to fly commercial. I get it. But if we're talking about the sake of humanity, their fates hanging in the balance, and we don't want to end up in some post-apocalyptic or dystopian nightmare in the future, you know, we don't want that all to happen. So why wouldn't we take certain measures today to lower our carbon footprint? Because those are things that the peons are supposed to do. Those are things that everybody else can take care of. It's just rich to lecture and say, well, the businesses can do this and that. But what are you as an individual willing to do to live up to your own ethic? What are you willing to do? Especially when you think it's an existential crisis or perhaps an existential crisis. And I don't know how much of Mark thinks that it is one, but he's talking about probability and risk assessment and all that stuff. So if all it costs you is some more time, if all it costs you some more time, then why not fly on United next to Bernie Sanders? Yes, it's always the classes lower than them that have to make the sacrifice. You know, when Leonardo DiCaprio gets up, when he finally got his Oscar for the Revenant, when he was, I didn't see that movie. I've seen a lot of Leonardo DiCaprio movies. It was just kind of strange that he went so long for not in his career not getting one, and then he finally got one, and he was bearded. I don't know if he was a mountain man or something like that, but he was in the cold and grunting and freezing. Those were like my impressions of the film. I didn't actually see it, but they gave him an Oscar for that, and he saved his Oscar speech for, saying this movie is about, battling with the elements, and in our environment's very important, and climate change, blah blah blah. He's a big climate change guy, but these people fly on jets and they ride on yachts. That doesn't mean that they don't care, but they don't live like they really think this is a world ending situation. Or maybe they really think that it is, but they're like, well, I'm gonna get the most out of what I can out of the planet, and I'm gonna virtue signal, but I'm not gonna work to make it better. And if you guys are screwed, at least I'm gone. Whoever's left behind, is left behind. So, oh, Mark Cuban, I so wish, you guys know Vivek isn't like my favorite, but I so wish, sorry, my light like went out, I gotta plug it up. I so very much wish that Vivek, I don't know if I can at this angle, might have to be a little dark. I meant to plug it up before I went live. Oh, there we go. I so very well wish that Vivek had said something about how many planes do you own, Mark? How many planes do you own? Why not make the Mavericks ride on the bus, or take a train or something like that? The questions we must ask ourselves. Anyway, moving on. CNN had a segment about the military transgender ban, and there's a great video that I saw by not a congressman, but he's a I think state rep. And let me see if I can find that real quick. I know it was on TikTok that I saw it, and I think I liked it. So I think I'll see if I can. Yeah, I will send it to myself really quick.
He has a proposition.
Okay. But President Trump, before he instituted a military ban when he was in his first term, so he put that back in order, and the court has decided to rule in his favor, at least for the meantime. And to me, it doesn't seem that insane that people who have a break with reality, that you wouldn't have them in the military. So Nick here, he is I forget what state he's a legislator for, but he was in the military, and he has a lot of great takes. And I want to go ahead and play his video that I came across today, because he just it's very succinct. He's actually replying to somebody. Just give me 1 second while I share my screen.
The Supreme Court is upholding Trump's ban.
on transgender people in the military. Okay, one person can come in the comments and tell me what is so scary about.
Sorry, Libs of TikTok had, I guess, had originally posted, reposted already. I'm sorry. Looked like the Wi-Fi went kind of low for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and restart the video.
She has a proposition.
The Supreme Court is upholding Trump's ban on transgender people in the military. And I have a question. Actually, I have a proposition, okay? If one person can come in the comments and tell me what is so scary about transgender people, I'll shave my head.
Well, I think I might be able to help with this. First of all, don't appreciate you assuming my motivation and the phrasing of your question. You're insisting that I explain why I am, quote, afraid of trans people. Turns out I'm not. I just think it's reasonable for the military to take into consideration whether or not a potential recruit has a deep psychological break with physical reality, has thus made that break with reality a core component of their identity, and is now insisting that everyone affirm their delusion, which will most likely lead to a course of action where they insist on certain accommodations ranging from medication to very expensive surgeries to cut off genitalia in the hopeless pursuit of a biological reality that they can't achieve, and all taxpayer expense. So I hope that clears it up. No need to shave your head, because quite frankly, I've never understood the progressive obsession with cutting things off to prove a point.
Boom. That was a good video. So I think he sums it up. So anyway, on CNN, they were having this debate, and they decided to compare it to, well, what if Trump decides to start banning black people from the military? And I just hate when those folks go in that route, when they try to make any sort of comparison to being black and transgenderism. It's just not the same. It's not the same thing. So please just stop. Please just stop.
Cohesion. And that's exactly the same kind of argument that they made against integrating the military when Harry Truman did it. I'm sorry, it's the same argument. Okay. It's the same.
I mean, is she wrong about that though? I mean, she is right about that.
Who did not want to serve
I'm aware.
White people didn't want to serve black people because of unit cohesion. So now you're saying gay people
can I just, we only have a couple seconds. Michael, I see that you're frustrated that she made that argument, but is she wrong that unit cohesion was used as an excuse to keep the military segregated for a long time?
I think we should,
and also don't ask, don't tell when it comes to discriminating against gay and lesbian people.
We should focus on the issue at hand. That's what I think.
Same argument.
But no, we should focus on the issue at hand. I don't know why we keep going to bringing up race. Let's just focus on the issue at hand.
Look, it's race, sexual orientation. We've seen this twice, right? In two major junctures for the military. I'm just wondering if she is drawing parallels here between the arguments that are being made to maintain this policy.
I reject those parallels. That's my answer. I reject the parallels. I think they're ludicrous parallels.
Do you feel like you had a choice in your life as to what you were going to do? Or no, of course not. No. The same way that I didn't have a choice to be born who I was, the same way you didn't have a choice to be born who you were. So why do we get exclusions and she doesn't?
I didn't say that Elena should be excluded.
Okay, why, under this president's policy,
my opinion here is let it work itself through the court system.
And I have no problem with that, but just don't fire people.
What do you mean he ain't had no choice sitting up there with fake titties on his chest? What do you mean he ain't got no choice? What do you mean he had no choice? What do you mean? What do you mean he had no choice when he decided to dress the way that he wants to dress in order to basically put on a costume? I just love how they're calling the trans dudes dolls now because it's fake. What do you mean he didn't have a choice? Someone said, look at them broad shoulders. Those are some broad shoulders. Those are broad shoulders, dude. What do you mean you'd have a choice? What do you mean you'd have a choice? No, why it is so annoying. I couldn't help the way I was born. She can't help the way she was born. No, you can't help the way that you're born. You can't help that you're trying to make everyone believe a lie. And you're cutting up yourself to live a lie. And you're making all these decisions to live a lie. It's not the same. It's not the same. There was a story about my grandpa. I'm assuming this is true. You know how you hear family stories. But he served in World War II. And he was there's supposed to be a dance or something, and someone had put up like no blacks allowed at the dance, and it was supposed to be like a military, you know, it was like on base or whatever. And you know, and somebody black tore the sign down, and then somebody white put it up, and again, and it was just causing all this tension and stuff. And then I think it was Douglas MacArthur who like got wind of it and was just like, we're all out here fighting together, dying together. You're saying we can't dance together. And so we told that story in the Philippines, in that my grandpa served under him, and man, like they just carried that story. They carried and kept like exaggerating it. They just still love General Douglas MacArthur. They still love General Douglas MacArthur, man. So you can't help if you're black, or you can't help your skin tone. You can't change that. You can't change your sex. You can't change your gender. That's kind of the whole point. You can't change those characteristics. But you getting surgery and putting fake titties on your chest, that is a choice. And believing and having this psychological issue, and it is a psychological issue. We can understand that if you have those issues, that we might not want you to serve. This isn't even the same as love who you want to love and don't ask, don't tell, which the Democrats like Bill Clinton signed. It's not even like that. There's a disorder in your mind. And you expect everybody else to go along with it. And apparently have the military or government or whatever pay for stuff too. And it's no. Please stop comparing it. Please stop comparing this dude's experience to my grandpa's experience, other people's experience in the military. Just stop it.
While it's working through the courts. That's what these injunctions were doing, was letting it work through the courts. And the Supreme Court, I think, really just delegitimized itself even further today. And I think that's a challenge for all of this country when we don't have the checks and balances of the courts, you know, checking the executive power, and Congress checking the executive power, and all of those things. Because at the end of the day, right now in the military, you can be a white supremacist, a known white supremacist, and serve in this military, but you cannot be transgender and serve in this military. That's a fact.
All right, Elena.
I don't know what Scott said after that, but he should have went like, now we watched that video yesterday of Mark Lamont Hill going off because Piers Morgan told they were on a panel together, and there was a white woman who's like, I want to live in a world where I can say the N-word freely, and he's like, well, go ahead and say it, and she wouldn't say it, and Mark Lamont Hill was like, no, don't say it, because I'm the only black person on this panel, and she'll be saying it to me, and I'll be the victim. I just needed like a tiny bit of like energy instead of just like here we go again, this dumb stuff. Like, I just need a little bit of like indignant energy from there. Be like, did you really just compare me growing up, or my ancestors, my family, and the struggles they faced with this man over here with his fake titties and with his delusion? Like, stop comparing black people to mental illness. I'm sorry. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Please. Please. Someone said if the SCOTUS doesn't agree with the left, it's delegitimized and not doing checks and balance. The court, you know, it's not like Trump hasn't gotten shot down by the courts, even by people that he's put on the bench too. Like, I mean, like he did the bump stock ban that got shot down. I mean, they adhere to they have different ideologies, the conservatives and the liberals, but the liberals believe in that, you know, the document is kind of living and breathing, and the other ones are like originalists and like, okay, what's the intent of the actual law? We're going by what the law says. And if you guys want it to be different, y'all need to pass some kind of bill, some kind of law, change the Constitution. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I wonder if Scott. It's just so. It's not the first time. People say it all to me all the time. I'll do videos about the transgenderism stuff, and they'll say, "Well, as a Black woman, then how can you say that about?" Because it's not the same. Well, like, why are you bringing that up? It's not the same, and it's not comparable to sexual orientation either. By the way, just me existing and being Black versus people deciding things, doing things, or having, you know, you being attracted to someone is one thing, but doing actions and living out your desires is not comparable to just me being Black and existing. So I understand people making certain comparisons, but trying to weaponize my Blackness to be able to get men in the woman's bathroom, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Someone said, you have to understand, to them it's the same because it's everybody versus white people to them. That's kind of true. That's kind of true. When people use the term a person of color, I always think it's funny because I'm like, okay, there's only like one person group that's not in the person of color. I mean, we're all colors, are we not? Like, white people don't go around saying I'm non-existent, I'm you know, transparent, I'm clear. You know, but when we're saying person of color, we just mean not the white people. And I think that's so interesting because there's clearly, I mean, we're all human beings, you know. I assume maybe most everybody watching right now is American, but I mean, people do watch from Canada and other places in the world, sometimes tune in. But we have a lot of things that bind us together in a way that I wouldn't relate to somebody from Nigeria or Kenya or something like that, you know. But there's experiences that I might have as a Black American that someone might not have as an Asian American. And it's just so funny that so often people want to group everybody together against the white people. You know, I say funny because I don't know how much people think about it when they use those sort of terms. You know, I've told this story quite a bit, but forgive me if you heard it before. When Wakanda Forever came out and they started showing the trailers for Namor, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And some people are like, you guys don't even know Namor that much. I had a Namor poster in my room. It was drawn by Michael Turner. Rest in peace, sir. He did beautiful art. But I had a Submariner poster that was art by Michael Turner on my wall. I really like Namor. I kind of liked his little forbidden thing with Sue, not gonna lie. I didn't love Reed Richards too much. But I still remember this panel from the Civil War book when he like pressed her oxygen mask, and I'm sorry, but you know, he had an aura about him. I liked Namor. And I knew about his background, knew about his story. I like Namor as a character. Read his books. You know, used to have a TV show back in the day. My mom watched it. But I knew he was. And he's not Hispanic or Aztec, whatever field they were going for. And I didn't like the design. and what they were doing, I didn't like it. So when I would complain about it, people would say, well, you should feel happy about it because as a person of color. I'm like, he's not the same color as me. Why should I care? Like, that's so weird to me. Like, why would I be? I'm a black woman. Why would I just toss out the source material that I obviously care about, am associated with, and just be like, oh no, it's okay because he's brown. We're not the same kind of brown. So I'm just supposed to be happy because he's not white? That's odd to me. That's odd to me. And Namor, he got teased for being pink skinned because the Atlanteans are blue. So even though he looked like a white person, you know, he still faced adversity and was an outcast, didn't quite fit in, and was a child of two worlds. But I don't know, it's like they just can't show any sort of sympathy toward anyone who looks white. So they have to take those stories and recast them with someone else for the sake of diversity. But they were going to have plenty of people of color in it because all the Atlanteans are blue. All the Atlanteans are blue. And they didn't think he was white. They thought he was pink. But they just thought I should be happy because he wasn't white. So it's very strange, just the energy that they have for, we don't like white people. And so it is very much a, you know, white people are at the hierarchy on the very bottom of privilege. Straight white male, oh my gosh, bottom rung. Like you have the most privilege, and when it comes to, you know, oppression Olympics and power scaling or whatever they use, that's the worst of the worst. Worst of the worst. Straight white male. Straight white male. So you're right that it is everybody against the white people, and they do try to group everybody else. But if you're straight anyway, you're kind of, you know, not doing well in their areas, especially if you're a straight man. Because even when BLM first started and I started researching what they're about, like way back when, and I went on their website and they were talking about, it's insane how much of their website and their ideology is just surrounded around LGBT stuff and not actually like police reform and protecting Black people. But they let it be known that they thought it was more important to uplift trans women, Black trans women, over Black straight men. Like they flat out said it. And I was floored. And so that was, I don't know, back in around the time Obama was still president at the time. And so when 2020 happened and people were really paying attention to BLM, and I went back on their website, I was surprised that you still saw language that still pointed to, you know, well, we're uplifting queer people above like the experiences of like, you know, straight folks, basically. And it wasn't as blatant, I think, as when I originally first read it, but it still was very swayed toward that ideology. And I was surprised with it being such a big movement at the time that they didn't clean it up. And it still took a while for people pointing at BLM for people to actually read the What We Are About page and how they wanted to, you know, I forget the exact wording about it wasn't deconstruct the Western prescribed nuclear family. There was another word that they used, but they were against it essentially. They didn't like, and when you would go through what they believed, they would talk about all these communities that they wanted to uplift, but they never talked about uplifting the Black father. So They were never the solution. Never the solution. Never the solution. Anyway, someone said, I wish I could be as privileged as I am made out to be. That reminds me of the Theo Von skit. And he said, you know, people talk about privilege and stuff. He's like, I wish. And he's like, to me, everybody just kind of, you know, he's like, people think I'm racist and did all this privilege stuff. He's like, why would I have done all this stuff to you and still be living where you are if I had done all this terrible stuff? And he's like, I've never been privileged. He's like, I knew some people who had some sweaters or something. Like the sweaters was the thing that's privilege. He's like, for me, it was 2 tank tops in the wintertime. So, you know, I definitely knew a lot of people growing up who of various races who didn't do well, who were definitely not privileged, who definitely had a hard time. And it's crazy how blanket people will throw, like, you're privileged, you're this because of your skin, and you just don't know their story and how much they've suffered. And there are people who have grown up who are Black, Hispanic, Asian, or whatever, who've grown up in nice communities and nice homes, you know, with parents who've had good jobs, who haven't gone to like inner city schools, and who have just done really well. Maybe they're homeschooled, maybe they're whatever, but they're charter schools. I don't know. But they're well off, but they still get they're the victim and this person is privileged. It's just an issue, obviously, that we have going on in the world. And it just goes back to a conversation we were having the other day, and I guess we've been having for the past week, looking at the Anthony Carmelo case and the Shiloh Hendricks case, where people just see causes and they're very tribal, and they just get away from seeing people as individuals, and everyone becomes something bigger than themselves, you know? And we just forget that we're all persons and human beings. So someone said it's all about how much you can put in a life. That is true. By the way, did you guys hear that we got a new pope today? I mean, it's not my pope, but Pope Leo the 14th. So one of my friends, I didn't even know she was Catholic. She was on TikTok. She's like, I didn't know I'd be so emotional. She was just crying. She just thought it was such a big deal that that we had an American Pope now, first time ever, I suppose. And people are digging through his social media and different things that he said, and he has been outspoken against some like immigration policies with Trump and Vance, and you know, I guess said some woke kind of things regarding BLM or George Floyd or stuff like that, but appears to be pro-life and, you know, be on the right side of the gender issue stuff. So I saw folks pointing out that politically he just kind of seems like he's going to be similar to the last pope. So you know, I hopefully you know, he's just someone who sticks to the traditions and doesn't take the Catholic Church in a negative direction. So, yep, it's an American Pope. And it's not Marco Rubio. There are lots of jokes about Marco Rubio being the Pope because every time Trump needs to move someone or fire someone, Marco Rubio gets the position temporarily. So Marco Rubio has like 20 jobs right now. Oh, someone said they're Pentecostal. No way. I'm Pentecostal too. I mean, I guess you can say our church is non-denominational, but we're definitely Pentecostal. So I am Pentecostal too. But yeah, I wish you all well and good luck. But I don't think the Pope should really be weighing into. I mean, the Pope obviously has a lot of say and influence and power, but I don't think. I mean, if you're prior to being the Pope, you might have different political stuff that you might speak out on, and have different articles or op-eds or whatever. So I get that, but I mean, hopefully your religious leaders are focused on the sheep. Their jobs are to be shepherds, like in general, when you have church leadership. And their focus should be on the word. What does the word say? How we can elevate and uplift the Lord and guide people to Christ. And that should be the focus, not American politics and other things, which those things are important and are if you know the word, if you know your faith, it should guide you into certain positions. Like, I'm glad that he's been pro-life, and I'm glad that they're right on the gender stuff. I think I don't know, there's when it comes to the immigration stuff, um I guess there's more nuance for the different arguments, and I can see how people come to different conclusions, but those are things we can have healthy debate about. But it's obviously, I guess I'm just saying, don't judge if he's going to be a bad pope because he seems soft on immigration, I guess. Is what I'm saying. You don't know how vocal he'll be on it in the actual capacity of the Pope, And I don't know. I don't know how many people Catholics are freaking out today. I've seen people very emotional, very happy, very happy. There was a pro-choice group life site, I think, just did an article that they posted saying that there was a group who denounces the new pope because they're obviously pro-choice and he's pro-life. And I know there are folks on the left who really, really, really wanted a very progressive woke pope, but doesn't seem to be happening. So anyway, there is a rumor that there's some GOP folks that are looking to raise some taxes on some wealthy folks in the Trump tax bill. That would be a mistake. That would be a mistake. If we're not going to have at least social conservatism, y'all could at least try. Like, I know they're not going to be like fiscally like responsible, like in the conservative way that we really want, but they could at least have like some general Republican tendencies, and the bare minimum is at least do not raise the taxes. Do not raise the taxes. Please do not do that. Please do not do that. And for what? I know they need some more revenue somewhere, but they really do need to cut spending. And they don't need to be just raising the taxes on people just because they cannot learn how to balance a freaking budget. They need to rein it in. They need to rein it in. So they're still arguing about the tax bill. I think I told you guys that they were aiming toward 4th of July to basically, I guess, have it done. Before, they were talking about something earlier before that, but July 4th is, I guess, where they're aiming toward. They really should have had something sooner, but I understand there's a lot of Republicans who are in blue areas and they're concerned and they're trying to make sure that they have a seat in the future. I get it, but if they don't pass this bill and if it ain't good, they're not going to have much of a future anyway. And this could be like the only like big piece of legislation thing that they end up really getting done. I hope that's not the case. Well, I don't want them to pass anything that's bad one way or another, but but they have to do something because our tax code is going to expire. Why they do the temporary stuff is so annoying, but taxes are going to go up if they don't do something. So they have to do something. The markets have anticipated that they're going to do something. Businesses have anticipated that they're going to do something, and it's just not going to be good if they don't. It's not going to be good if they don't. And they not only do they need to pass it, they need time to sell it. They need time to sell it once it's implemented, because the Democrats are going to go on a "you didn't get a tax cut" and it's kind of tour that they did before, even though most people got one. Even the New York Times did an article about how most everyone got a tax cut, but that just wasn't the perception with people because how the media and stuff had lied. So, you know, they got to figure it out. They've got to figure it out. Anyway, I think that's all I got for you guys on today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content of the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation to the website because it does cost a stream on the site. All that good stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate you guys. I ask that you also check out different merch that's available on the website as well, different t-shirts and like this cool goat hoodie and goat t-shirt. The hoodie is very comfortable, and the goat, it's got Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, and Trump on it. And we got other stuff like the "I'm not the victim you're looking for" t-shirt. I made that after the Gina Carano situation, but got lots of stuff on the website you guys can check out. Also, I have different books you guys can check out available on Amazon. If you watched on Facebook or YouTube, there's a link in the description that'll take you to an Amazon page where you guys can see my books. So please go ahead and check those out. And if you have read them, I ask that you please leave a nice little review for me on Amazon. Please, I appreciate it. Again, just want to remind you guys, I will be out next week because I'll be preparing for Motor City Comic Con, and then I'll actually be at the con. So if you're in the Michigan area, I encourage you guys to come on out and see me and pick up a book and say hello. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.